Good to go, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October Buloke Shire Council meeting. This meeting is being broadcast via Council's website. Wish everyone who's viewing a good evening. Hope you're all doing well out there and getting some of this great rain that's going on around the state. I'd like to open by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting and the lands to where tonight's broadcast reaches. We also pay our respects to their elders and to the elders from other communities who may be in attendance this evening. Because this is a live stream meeting, we do have a little bit of housekeeping before we continue on, so I'll go through that now. Because we're holding a virtual meeting of the Buloke Shire Council, throughout the meeting, councillors must be able to see and be seen, hear and be heard. To ensure we are meeting these guidelines, we will commence with a roll call of councillors to establish they are fully connected. I'll start with the Lower Avoca ward. Councillor David Pollard.
Thanks, Councillor Warren. Mr Mayor, I can see and hear everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Carolyn Stewart.
Thank you. I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. Melly Ward and Councillor Alan Getley.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. I can hear and see everybody.
Thank you. And my fellow Mount Jeffcott ward councillors, Councillor Graham Milne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can also hear and see everybody.
And Councillor Bronwyn Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. I can see and hear everybody in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. If a conflict of interest is declared, the councillors who has the conflict will be removed from the meeting completely for that item and be reinstated after that item has been dealt with before the meeting can proceed. Councillors will vote by showing their hands, making sure their raised hand is within shot. If any councillor loses connectivity during the meeting will be suspended until connection is restored for all councillors. If council's broadcast of the council meeting experiences technical difficulties and drops out, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes to re-establish connection. Thank you, everyone, for your patience with that. Right. Do I have any apologies for tonight's meeting, councillors? Councillor Viss?
Yes, through you, Councillor Viss, is an apology tonight.
Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting of the 22nd of September. Councillors, those minutes have been circulated. Do I have someone to move those minutes, please? Councillor Getley to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard to second. Thank you. Any opposition, councillors? No. Thank you, councillors. Carried. Do I have any requests for leave of absence? Thank you, councillors. I don't. Do I have any declaration of pecuniary and conflicts of interest at this stage? No. Thank you, councillors. I don't have any questions from the public. 7.1 procedural items. The report of councillor assemblies. We have that the council note the report of councillor assembly meetings held on the 1st of September, the 14th and 15th of September 2021. Councillors, do I have someone to move that we note those reports, please? Councillor Milne to move. Councillor Sim to section. Any opposition? Councillors? No, thank you very much. 7.2 correspondence initiated by council. We do have some correspondence, councillors. The council notes the record of correspondence initiated by council and the responses received. We have correspondence being directed to Telstra regarding damaged pits within the Shire. This has been raised by Councillor Getley in regard to that. Anything to add to that, Councillor Getley?
Nothing much further, Mr. Mayor, but I'd just like to add that if this was in a bigger town of Bendigo or Shepparton, these would have been repaired long ago. I just find it very irresponsible of an organisation like Telstra that they can leave these pits there. You look at the pit at Telstra at Nullarbor, for instance, started with witches' cones, went to bollard, it's now got steel posts and bunting around it. Won't be long, we'll have a 6-foot chain mesh fence around it to hold it. And this is an urgent matter that needs urgent attention from Telstra. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getley. Councillors, so we do have some correspondence. Do I have someone to move that correspondence be forwarded, please? Councillor Getley to move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stewart to second. Any opposition? Thank you, councillors. 7.3, letters of congratulations and recognition of achievement awards. Councillors, we have some letters to be sent to acknowledge and congratulate persons or groups mentioned in this report. To Ms. Julie Pringle for the Sea Lake Visitor Information Centre, and to all medical clinics across the Shire for their sterling work in the rollout of the vaccinations across the whole Shire. Do I have any more letters that perhaps we should be sending out, councillors? Look, I do want to add one, and you can congratulate me later, Councillor Pollard. I noticed in the Buloke Times that Jenny Pollard was recently announced as the winner of the 2021 Wimmera Artist Festival Photographic Portrait Prize. This is quite an achievement. Her subject actually was David Heathcote, which was taken at the Rex Theatre. Councillor Pollard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think but some people might believe that I might have a conflict of interest in a letter being written to Jenny, my wife, but I don't believe it is a conflict since there is no financial loss to it's not costing council any financial issues, and we're only noting the letters to be sent anyway.
Thanks, Councillor Pollard. I'd hate to put you in an awkward situation in your matrimonial situation there. So, look, Councillor Getley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another one that I'd like to see is Alison McClellan at Sea Lake. Alison stepped down as the chair of Advanced Sea Lake on Tuesday night. She's been in the position since 2016 and has done quite a wonderful job up there. So I think she's deserving of a letter.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We can certainly add that to the list. Any others, councillors, that you think we should be sending out? No? Okay, well, do we have someone to move that recommendation? Those letters be sent, please, councillors. Councillor Milne to move. Seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Getley. Any opposition? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. 7.4, building permits monthly update. We have a recommendation that council note information contained in the report on building permits approved by staff from the 1st of September to the 30th of September 2021. The staff, any comment about this? Mr. Step.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Ricks may have a comment to make, perhaps.
Thanks, Wayne. Just through the minutes that councillors note the report.
Thank you, Ms. Ricks. Ms. Ricks. Do I have any questions from councillors regarding the report? No. So we do have a recommendation that we noted, councillors. So do I have someone to move that recommendation, please? Councillor Pollard to move it. Seconder, please. Councillor Simpson. Oh. No, sorry. Councillor Stewart. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Any opposition? No, councillors. That's carried. 7.5, planning applications received the monthly update, councillors. We have a recommendation that the council note information contained in the report on planning applications under consideration by staff and the status of each of these applications. Any questions, councillors, at this stage? Any further information from officers regarding this report?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, just that since the preparation of this report, there have been a few permits on that list that have since been issued.
Okay, thank you. It seems a very comprehensive list with lots going on across the Shire. It's very, very hectic, but it's great to see the amount of work. So that's great to think we're powering ahead and receiving these applications and permits. Councillors, we do have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that recommendation that we note this report, please? Councillor Glethley to move that. Councillor Stewart to second that. Councillors, any opposition? Thank you. That's carried, councillors. General business, 8.1.1, the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. Wouldn't want to say that with too many under my belt. But anyway, probably coming from Mrs. Yu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The Local Government Act requires that the council must develop and maintain a CEO employment and remuneration policy. So the key things that we need to consider within that policy document include the recruitment and appointment of the CEO, the CEO's employment contract, and the CEO's performance and review of their performance. Council officers are recommending adoption of this policy earlier than the timeframes which are prescribed under the Act in order for its introduction to be available to support the current CEO recruitment process. We are bringing this to Council, recommending adoption.
Thank you, Mrs. Yu. Councillors, any questions? I suppose with the departure of the previous CEO, it sort of hurried up the process, so we're ahead of the game for probably the wrong reasons. But anyway, we will carry on. So, councillors, we do have a recommendation that Council adopt the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. Do I summon to move that particular recommendation? Councillor Pollard to move it. Do I have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Milne. It was a bit of a dead heat. I'd better get the camera out, but I think I've got you there, Councillor Milne. Any opposition, councillors? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. (8.2) Management reports. A planning permit application 937/21, a 2-lot subdivision, rural dwelling excision, 86 Lanes Road, Jeffcott. That would be from Works and Technical Services. So, Miss Ricks.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, Council has received a planning permit application for a 2-lot subdivision to create a lot for a rural dwelling excision at 86 Lanes Road, Jeffcott. The property is zoned farming zone, and council officers have undertaken an assessment of the permit application in accordance with the Planning and Environment Act. The proposal is consistent with the purpose of the zone and incorporates a buffer to the extent that the dwelling will not be significantly affected by the agricultural operations and that the dwelling will not affect the productive capacity of the farming land. Mayor, there's a recommendation before council to consider.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions at this stage, please? Councillor Milne?
More than just a comment, I suppose, Mr. Mayor, that while these excisions are nice to have because it brings people into the district, adds people to outlying areas that can be part of communities like fire brigades and football clubs and put kids on buses and shop at the supermarket. They're always a bit of a worry with farming land close by and dogs and things and the right to farm. And I note that at our briefing we discussed the inclusion of the right to farm terms in these sort of things that gives the neighbouring landholders a bit of comfort in that they'll be able to get on with their job, and it also informs the people going into these rural properties that they have a responsibility to be sure that they're not interfering with the farming enterprise. Plus, it also ensures that they have their rights and wants looked at as well. So. These things, to me, are very important because it keeps our population or the potential for population in the district. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Milne. Any other councillors with a comment or a question? If not, we do have a recommendation that council, having caused notice of planning application number 937/21 to be given under section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and or the planning scheme, and having considered all the matters required under section 60 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, decides to grant a permit under the provisions of 35.07/3 of the Buloke planning scheme in respect of the land known and described as 86 Lanes Road, Jeffcott, CA 63, Parish of Buloke, for the 2-lot subdivision of land, rural dwelling excision, in accordance with the endorsed plans and with the application dated 28th of July 2021, subject to conditions. Councillors, do I have someone to move that recommendation?
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Milne to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard to second. Councillors, is there any opposition to this recommendation? With no opposition, that is passed. Thank you, councillors. (8.2) Audit and Risk Committee, reappointment of independent member and chair. Welcome the Director of Corporate Services to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Ms. Margaret Abbey, PSM, has recently expressed to Council an interest in continuing as an independent member on our Audit and Risk Committee for a further term of 3 years at the conclusion of her current term in mid-November this year. Ms. Abbey has also been appointed the chair of the committee. At the September Audit and Risk Committee meeting, the committee's other independent members have confirmed that they would support Ms. Abbey to continue as the chair of the committee, subject to, of course, Council resolving to appoint her for a further term as the independent member and also resolving to appoint her as chair for a further 2 years as well. Ms. Abbey has been an invaluable member of the committee and a highly effective and respected chair, and this report recommends that Council resolve to reappoint her to both positions for the terms outlined in the recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Yu. Councillors, any question or comment at this stage? Thank you. Well, we have a recommendation before us, one that we appoint Ms. Margaret Abbey, PSM, as an independent Audit and Risk Committee member for a term of 3 years expiring the 15th of November 2024, and to reappoint Ms. Margaret Abbey, PSM, as chair of the Audit and Risk Committee for a term of 2 years expiring the 15th of November 2023. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, councillors? Councillor Stewart to move that. Seconder, Councillor Simpson to second that. Is there any opposition, councillors, to this recommendation? Well, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. 8.2.3, community grants and sponsorship. This is from the community development area. Mr. Fitzgibbon, we welcome you to the game, I think, in your first official outing.
Indeed it is, Mayor. Thank you. And through you, councillors, I'm pleased to present the Community Grants and Sponsorship Report with one application for your consideration that has been assessed and qualifies as per your guidelines, that being for $500 of sponsorship to the Wycheproof Resource Centre, Community Resource Centre, to assist in the publication of their Wycheproof community calendar. I'm pleased to present this report to councillors for their consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. Councillors, any questions at this stage? No? Well, councillors, we do have a recommendation that council allocates the following funding under the Community Grants and Sponsorship Program: 500 sponsorship grant to Wycheproof Community Resource Centre. Do I have someone to move that recommendation? Councillor Pollard to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stewart second, thank you. Is there any opposition, councillors? Well, that's carried. Just one thing, just as I suppose an observation, how quickly are the applicants notified of their success or otherwise when we make a decision on these matters?
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, our Manager of Community Services will be in contact with successful applicants by the end of the week.
Thank you very much. It's good, just good to know that there's a community often hang out for that information so they can get on, but it's good to know that, yeah, we act very quickly. Thank you. 8.2.4, the Buloke Shire Council Climate Change Mitigation and Adoption Strategy and Plan. The Director of Community Development. Up at the mound again.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you on a night of tongue twisters, isn't it? I'm excited to bring you the draft Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Strategy and Plan to you for endorsement for the purposes of community consultation. Council's developed a 10-year climate change mitigation and adaptation strategy and plan, which is clear and concise and an actionable plan for implementation into council and our community, with actions categorised into 13 goals for action. Council has seen the development of the draft climate change mitigation and adaptation strategy and plan over a number of months, and it should be noted at this point the immense work done by Council's Environmental Compliance Officer Anna Arcudis on this strategy, and we now bring this to you tonight for the endorsement to further engage on the strategy, this time with our community.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. Councillors, any questions or comment at this stage? Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A very important document, I think. I've got no doubt that there's still people in our community that wonder about where this is all going to go. It's great that we've made the decision to have a clear and concise step in the right direction, or in that direction. I just hope that the community gets onto it and consults with us about it, because it does cover a wide range of things that we're responsible for in our daily lives, and plus with council. So it'd be disappointing if the community didn't get involved in this and put their 5 cents in, because it's a very important document going forward, and it will be one that dictates where we spend some money, and that some other things may miss out, so to speak. But very important that they have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Any other councillors wish to say anything at this stage? No. Well, councillors, we have a recommendation that council endorse the draft climate change mitigation and adaptation strategy and plan, and make available for community consultation. Do I have someone to move that recommendation to put this out for community consultation, please, councillors? Councillor Stewart to move that, and Councillor Getley to second that. Any opposition, councillors? That's carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for the work that's gone into this. We've come to our own Glasgow just a little bit earlier, but this is good to see that the community will be able to have their say. It's great. (8.25) Annual Plan 2021-22, the Progress Report. This is from the Interim Chief Executive Officer. If we can, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, I'm pleased to present the first quarterly report for the 2021-22 annual plan. And I'd perhaps like to highlight a number of achievements already in the first 3 months of the year, Mayor, including the climate adaptation strategy, which we've just issued for consultation with the community. And quite a bit of work going on around doing some design work for drainage around a number of our townships. The Birchip and Witchy-proof streetscapes, as I'm sure councillors and all the community can bear witness, is progressing quite well. We've also been able to appoint a youth officer to deliver our Vic Health program. And the Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Review has also commenced, Mayor. There's a recommendation before councillors to note this report.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Any questions, councillors? No questions. Councillors, we have a recommendation that the council note the progress made to deliver the strategic objectives noted in the adopted Year 1 annual plan for the Buloke Council Plan 2021-2025. Do I have a councillor to move that recommendation, please? Councillor Pollard to move it and Councillor Milne to second it. Is there anyone opposed to that, please, councillors? No. Well, let's go. That is carried. And just to echo those, if you look at the particular gains we've had in just this small part, it's all upwards, so to speak, and onwards, and continue the sterling work that's been going on for the last number of years. So it's good to see that, and good to see solid progression towards those that plan. 8.2.6, activities of Charlton Park Community Asset Committee. This is from the Interim Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, under the Local Government Act, our community asset committees are required to provide annual reports on their activities, and accordingly we have received such a report from the Charlton Park Community Asset Committee.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Any questions, councillors? No. Well, council, we have a report to so that we note the annual report of activities and performance of the Charlton Park Community Asset Committee. Someone to move that note for noting, councillors. Councillor Stewart to move it, Councillor Pollard to second. Any opposition? Carried. Thank you, councillors. 8.2.7, activities of the Birchip Housing Community Asset Committee. Again, the Interim Chief Executive Officer, please.
Thank you again, Mayor. So same as the previous report, under the Local Government Act, the Birchip Housing Community Asset Committee is required to provide us a report on their activities on an annual basis. They have done that. Details are attached. Mayor, there's a recommendation for councillors to note this report.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Any questions, councillors, at the stage? Councillor Milne.
Just a comment I can, Mr. Mayor. Great to get those reports. The thing that I note is that they are quite successful with their funding and getting the last lot paid off. But the thing that I note most in these is the list of waiting people waiting on the waiting list. Quite a substantial list, and that I've got no doubt that that they're very anxious to move forward with another project on this that we all know about. But the committee itself, to my way of thinking, does a marvellous job in building and maintaining and keeping these properties up to date. And congratulate them for that. And it's nice to have these regular updates so that we know where we stand with them, and there's no surprises, no hidden things there that don't get disclosed. So they're great to get those reports from these both these committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Any other councillors? No. We do have a recommendation that council notes the annual report of activities and performance of the Birchip Housing Community Asset Committee. Do I have someone to move that we note that report, councillors? Councillor Milne to move that. A seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Gatley a second. Is there any opposition? No, councillors. That's carried. Thank you very much. 8.2.8, application to keep excess animals at 29 Hannon Street, Sea Lake. Works and Technical Services. Ms. Ricks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, council has received a local laws permit application to keep an excess number of poultry at 29 Hannon Street in Sea Lake. Officers followed local laws procedures in assessing the permit application, and council has received one objection to the permit as well as one complaint. Since preparing this report, an additional inspection has been carried out, which has identified 9 roosters and approximately 100 chickens on the property, which are possibly not being fed sufficiently. that there are unregistered dogs at the property. The conditions of the property are also contrary to the requirements under council's community local law, and council has not yet received a doctor's letter to support the application. Mayor, there's a recommendation before council for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Councillors, any questions at this stage, please? All right, Councillor Getley.
Thank you, Mayor. More of a comment that I do have some concerns with this report, that it's not a complete report, but I do note there's a medical component to it, and I don't believe that medical component has been thoroughly investigated, and I do have the concerns regarding that part of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Getley. Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Normally, I'd be one who would stand up and say, let's give them a go. But in this situation, there's too many things, from my perspective, stack up against something like this. And I wonder why people have to be prompted to put in an application when there's so many animals. It's, you know, they know the rules, I guess. And while there might be extenuating circumstances in some situations, to be found out that you've got excess and then put in an application, to me is, you know, as I say, while I've supported some in the past, this one makes it difficult with what the officers have found and what they've tried to do, and that all the information hasn't been forthcoming as yet, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Councillors, any other comment at this stage before we move to the recommendation? No, well, we do have a recommendation, councillors, provided by the officers. The council refuses the application for a permit under council's community local law 2019 clause 42(1) to keep animals that are excess in the number of poultry as per the table as listed on 42(1) of the council's community local law 2019 at the address of 29 Hannon Street, Sea Lake. Do I have someone to move that recommendation? Councillor Pollard to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillors. Councillor Stewart to second that. Is there any opposition?
No.
That's carried, councillors. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one thing I should have asked, and it's not it wouldn't affect the decision, but if this applicant was able to clean up the act, so to speak, make sure that the conditions were above board, that the letter was supplied, that the feed, that he could provide the right feed and that sort of thing. Is this applicant able to reapply, and is there a time frame on that application, Mr. Mayor, through the Mayor to Ms. Ricks?
Yep, certainly.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yes, the applicant is able to reapply. CEO Wayne, I'm just not too sure on the time aspect, if you could assist.
Yeah, thanks, Amber, and through the Mayor. There is no time limit on this, Councillor Milne, so certainly the applicant has some work to do to come back to us, and we'd be happy to work with them as well. Certainly the number of chickens and roosters involved, you know, that does create some challenges for us, but we'd be happy to work with the applicant ongoing.
Thank you, staff.
Thanks, councillors. Thank you, staff. 8.3, financial reports. We do not have any. 8.4, organisation reports, none noted. 8.5, councillors, reports from councillors. Oh, well, I'll go around the room, so to speak. So I'm going to start with Councillor Pollard. If you have anything to report, Councillor Pollard.
I've got nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several EDITAC housing EDITAC meetings with subcommittee meetings. I actually missed the main EDITAC meeting for a deadlist appointment, but the subcommittee, housing subcommittee, have met, and there's some good progress being made there. Also attended the Birchip listening post for the community precinct plan that's out and about, and was there with Councillor Simpson as well as staff, and that was a good debate or a good discussion. Whether it was all properly informed, who knows, but that's the job going forward, to make sure that everybody's informed. Certainly, we've had a couple of we've had Buloke Tourism Board. We've had a couple of local meetings, Lake meeting last night in Watcham, where long-time President Brian Wilder stood down, and a new president was elected in for that committee. Certainly, Donald Place Space discussion at the park was another one we attended, and disappointingly, there only one parent, but she did represent quite a number. And probably one of the highlights of the month was the Sea Lake visitor information and the sod turning up there, which has been two long awaited projects, or two projects that'll benefit the community, we hope, going forward. And working in conjunction with Birchip Forum for the Street Art Festival. We've had a couple of Zoom meetings on those as well, and progress is moving forward for next March there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Councillor Getley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended the EDITAC meeting, and along with my fellow councillor David Biz, attended the Advanced Sea Lake Ordinary Monthly meeting, and the following week the Sea Lake Annual General meeting. As I mentioned previously, Alison McClellan has stood down, and Alex Newell has moved into the chair, which is a changing of the guard there a bit. They're also very pleasing to see some younger members of the community join that committee at the annual meeting, which is where our regeneration will come from up there. Also attended Nullarbor Progress Association, Southern Mallee Wimmera Transport Group, ordering meetings and briefings, and along with the other councillors, the Sea Lake opening of the Visitor Information Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getley. Councillor Stewart.
I don't have anything that I wish to report. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Simpson. You're on mute, Councillor Simpson.
Sorry about that. I have attended the Birchip and the Donald forum meetings. I, together with Councillor Milne, attended the Birchip listening post. I have also attended the Birchip Library meeting, and I've taken on the position of chair. I have attended 2 days of engagement with the people of Witchyproof regarding Mount Witchyproof through Friends of Mount Witchyproof, and the concerns regarding the emus on Mount Witchyproof. I have also attended the North Central Len board meeting, and that brings me fairly much to the conclusion, and I look forward to the listening posts which are planned for the next couple of weeks regarding roads at the local fire stations.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Just to report that the last month, I suppose, from a mayoral point of view, has been pretty hectic. I think if I look down at the number of days between the last council meeting and this one, the number of meetings and engagements I've attended has exceeded the number of days. So somewhere along the line, I probably need some help with accounting. But anyway, look, I suppose the highlight, and I've done this, I suppose, off my own bat and on behalf of the council, was to acknowledge the incredible work done by our vaccination clinics and our groups across the Buloke Shire. We're all aware that in terms of the vaccination race, that we're well over 95% single vaxxed and well into the 70s as far as double vaxxed people across the community. And this really is to the incredible effort done by our local community doctors and our community centres and our clinics across the Shire and our pharmacies up at Sea Lake, not to forget them as well. But so I think normally to acknowledge such an outstanding effort, that the Mayor would dip into his coffers and hold a civic reception to acknowledge the great work. Sadly, in COVID times, we can't do that. But I think we needed to acknowledge that. So they got the next best thing, which was a visit from the Mayor and presented with a personally hand-baked rich fruitcake, so that they could sit down with morning tea and have a cuppa and at least feel that their jobs has been well appreciated. The rest in terms of the month highlighted obviously by the opening of the visitor hub at Sea Lake. No doubt that was a brilliant day. And the turning of the sod at the housing development, which is always on everyone's lips right across the Shire. And I suppose on a poignant note, the last day of, the first day of October, we saw the last day of the CEO, Mr. Judd, who left the organisation. And as a parting gift, I organised a meeting with the Governor of Victoria so that he was well regarded by the people of Victoria for his role at Buloke, and that seemed to be a fitting thing. So I have forwarded on my full report for the month, which can be included in the minutes going forward to get an idea of what we covered. But there was certainly a lot, and I suppose the other thing was there's been a lot of radio interest and media interest in regarding the if you like, the vaccination trial, which we have obviously the Terminus Hotel in Witchyproof taking part, and that's created interest in some very strange quarters, but it's good to see that we do have a business participating, and hopefully when the rest of Victoria opens up, they'll be able to learn the lessons of the Terminus Hotel going forward. So it's been a very active month one way or the other. So thank you, councillors, for your input there. 8.6 matters which may exclude the public at this stage. Well, we do not have any matters which may exclude the public. 9.1, we have notices of motion, financing of the Colgoa dump point. Councillor Getley, I'd like you to introduce this one, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'd like to hold this motion over till next month to consider some further information that I wasn't aware of at the time, please.
Okay, I take it. So you'd like that held over? I take it that according to our governance rules, that matter can be held over for inclusion in next month's agenda. Would that be correct, Mrs. Yu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my understanding, Councillor Getley's laying the matter on the table for the next meeting. That if council is in agreement to that, then we will be able to arrange for that to be in the November meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Yu. Thank you, Councillor Getley, for bringing that to our attention. So we'll look at that at next month's meeting. 9.2, questions from councillors. Councillors, are there any questions at this stage? Councillor Milne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 4 questions, if I may, and some of these will be on notice. The fire permits situation, which I've been updated on tonight by Mr. O'Toole, for the allowing of people to come out of the city to do fire prevention work on their properties. It seems to be a bit of a disappointment that they're not allowed to come out until the infringement notice has been issued on that property. So they can't apply, although applications open on this weekend or this Friday or whatever. They can't apply for a permit to come out until the infringement notice is issued, which, you know, if it keeps going like this, some of them won't even find their house amongst the property or whatever they've got on the property with the growth that's out there. So I find that to be disappointing. And while it's probably not a question that can be answered in there, it's more of a comment to feedback to those powers who make those rules. Please, the other couple of things, the other one I was a little bit disappointed to see that wasn't in this meeting was the EDITAC housing incentive project that that was put up. I was led to believe that it was to be in this in the October meeting. And I've had a fair bit of pressure from other members on that housing subcommittee to make sure that arrives. So I'm hoping that we can have something definitely for the next month. Charlton Park, I would like to comment on some of the deficiencies that I'm starting to see happening there in the building. For Wimmera Tourism the other day, I noticed cracks in the wall. Have we obviously got a defect list there? And can I have some indication of what process is being followed up to remedy those? And the other one I probably want to have on just a question on for the building department is I'm led to believe there's a couple of buildings with outstanding sign-offs on those with a couple of ratepayers, and maybe if we had a list of, if we could see a list of things that that have been brought to council or been approved by council that are having an extended sign-off problem. If we could, where they're not too personal, there's not too many issues there, that we could see a list of those things and have a look at a way forward at a briefing if we could, please. Thank you. Yep. Welcome comments on any of that stuff, but I'm happy for it to go on notice.
Thanks, Councillor Milne.
Oh, through you, Mayor. Councillor Milne, I can provide an answer in relation to the Charlton Park question. So there was a defects list. The defect liability period has now lapsed and been signed off. That particular issue with the building has been flagged by the Charlton Park Asset Committee, and also by the secretary of that committee, which is, the chair of that committee, which is Councillor Stewart. That's now in as a works request and it's under investigation.
Thank you, Ms. Briggs.
Yeah, thank you. I just being there the other day, it was just concerning that such a new building and with the rigorous amount of underpinning or concrete that went into the foundation, that the darn thing is moving already. So disappointing, to say the least.
Thanks, Councillor Milne. Councillor Stewart.
Yep, thank you. I noticed that there have been a number of incidents of vandalism in the Shire, particularly around Charlton, at Charlton Travellers Rest, as well as damage to the solar lights along the walking track. They've actually been vandalised for the second time just earlier this month after having been only just recently being repaired. So my question is, can we do something about those solar lights, perhaps put some cages around it or something like that, just to prevent some further damage? But also, I know that we've discussed the possibility of installing security cameras at Travellers Rest, and I was just wondering, has any more been actioned in that regard?
Yes, Mayor, I can take that question through you, Mayor. Councillor Stewart, in relation to the CCTV cameras, there was an application put in some time ago with assistance, of course, of the Travellers Rest Committee and a letter of support from them. That was unsuccessful. That's something that hasn't been budgeted for this financial year, but certainly can be considered next financial year. In relation to the solar lights, I'll take that one on notice and have a chat to the appropriate officer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions at this stage, councillors, you may have? Just as a follow-up to Councillor Milne's question regarding the housing incentive package, correct me if I'm wrong, that will be presented to the November meeting, is that correct?
Mayor, through you, at this stage we will bring a briefing through to council. It'll probably be the next briefing. We'll have a chat to you about that ahead of what we'll do for the ordinary meeting in November.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for that. Urgent business, councillors. Do we have any urgent business at this stage? Do we have any other business at this stage? No? Well, if there if there is no other business at this stage, I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:50 p.m. and we'll see you at the next council meeting